Good morning, Happy Valley, and welcome back to another edition of the Penn State 365 podcast. I'm your host, Richie O'Leary, and joined as always when we're talking Penn State football recruiting, Happy Valley Insider's very own Dylan Cowley and Crawley. Dylan, another exciting day on the recruiting trail for Penn State. Not one, but two commitments yet again. So let's start off with the first one, 2025 four-star weak side defensive end, Yvan Kemajou, coming up out of Maryland. Tell me a little bit about how this one just kind of came together.
Yeah, so Kamajou's been a player on Penn State's radar for quite a while now. Let's see when he picked up his offer. When Penn State was struggling on the recruiting trail on the defensive line there for a hot minute, Kemajou was a guy that we were looking at as they may have this, maybe the guy that they're best suited for. At the time, he was a three-star prospect. He's now since gained his fourth star. I believe we were the first of the sites across the industry to give him his fourth star. When Penn State was struggling on the recruiting show, Kemajou was the one that we always felt good about. We future casted him to Penn State back in early June, almost right after his official visit. Or at least you did. I followed suit about a week ago. But we felt pretty good after that official visit. And like I said, they've been on him for a while. They offered him back in January. Notably, we have him ranked as a defensive end. I believe Penn State has taken him as a defensive tackle to start. So he is going to have to add some considerable weight at 6'3", 230. But I think that's also where his game may end up being the best. I think there's an opportunity for him to stay at defensive end, but I believe that he is being recruited as a defensive tackle. Penn State now, of course, has 5 defensive line commits in that class, four. Jaden Woods, defensive end, Cortez Harris, defensive end, defensive tackle Randy Adarica, and now Yvan Kemajou. They, of course, did have Max Granville in that class. He recently reclassified to the 2024 recruiting cycle, is on campus for Penn State as they start fall camp tonight. This just continues to what's been a hot stretch on the recruiting trail for Dan Barnes. A couple of weeks ago, 8 weeks ago, it looked like it may be a tough cycle for him. But he's put together a really nice class. And Penn State was really one of the first programs to identify Kemajou as, a really top-tier talent. Virginia Tech, came along as well. But this is a kid who has, pretty quickly risen through the rankings over the last couple months now. Like I said, a 4-star prospect. But I think this is a really nice pickup for Penn State overall.
Yeah, this is number 12 in terms of 4-star commits in the 2025 class. Obviously, it used to be 12 technically before Max Granville left and reclassified to 2024 2024. Yvan Kemajou also plays. I'm looking right now. He plays tight end, offensive tackle, defensive end, and defensive tackle. You said more than likely going to be a defensive tackle.
Yeah.
Break down his game a little bit if you can as a defensive tackle. I know he probably has the frame, like you said, to probably pack on the pounds, and that's probably what Penn State sees as well, to be that defensive tackle, but he also plays some defensive end.
Yeah, I'll talk about him as a defensive lineman in total. And I would say he's physically very strong. He's explosive, so that's a big plus, obviously. No matter if he's inside, outside, that's going to translate well. But throughout his game, he's shown the ability to play both outside, inside. Like we said, I think the frame and the strength that he has right now is likely going to be what leads him to inside. He is explosive, like I said. I think his explosiveness may be better suited for a defensive tackle, where, maybe he is on the smaller side. Maybe he is a Zane Durant-style defensive tackle on the smaller side, but explosive, where he can be a plus pass rusher from the inside. But if you put him on the outside, he may be more of, your slightly above average to good defensive end, but perhaps not a great pass rusher on the outside. I think if you put him on the inside, you could take advantage of that explosiveness. You could take advantage of that strength, and as he fills into his frame more and more, he'll have the ability to become a potentially very, very good defensive tackle in the middle of Penn State's defensive line. Um, you look at his tape. I think what stands out is, or you, it's very consistent in how dominant he is against opposing offensive linemen. Now, I think Paint Branch does not play many elite high schools in the state of Maryland, so and
Yeah,
obviously not facing a ton of elite talent. But overall, he's been to rivals camps in the past. He's impressed at rivals camps. I think the
Under Armour.
biggest, I think the biggest question for him is just going to be as he adds that size. If he's going to be a defensive tackle, he's probably getting at least to around that 280 mark, uh, if not 290. So if he adds another 50, 60 pounds, can he continue to be explosive? Can he continue to be, have a good bend in his game, so on and so forth? So I think that's going to be the biggest question. But I think he definitely has a chance to be a very good pass rusher from um, the inside, and he's on the edge. He still has a chance to be a very good player. Though I do think his biggest upside, like I said, is inside.
Well, the good news is it seems like he might have some time to develop for the sole fact
For
that
sure.
I'm looking right now, three juniors at defensive tackle, five freshmen or redshirt freshmen at defensive tackle, including some of the other guys that are coming in this class. So he will have some time. Plus, the new scholarship limits are probably going to have 105, so there's just going to be bodies on bodies at every position, it seems like, going forward.
Yeah,
Um,
and I know we talked about that last time, but good point of clarification. Uh, Teams can still take walk-ons if they want to, um, though you are capped at the 105 mark.
yeah.
Some teams will use all 105 scholarships, some teams will not. So just a point of clarification because I know we talked about that at length last time.
Yeah, I'd be a little shocked if Penn State didn't go all 105 ships. They have the money and they have the program, they have the team. Why not? Um, Next up on the list that also committed today, Daniel Jennings, defensive end coming up out of West Virginia. Not a state you really hear a ton about, but he's been to campus quite a few times. It sounds like he's tested really well at multiple camps. Kind of tell me about how this one just kind of came together. Plucking a kid from West Virginia who had a West Virginia offer is always pretty impressive.
Yeah, no, anytime you can go into West Virginia and take one of the elite prospects out of that state, um, it's a win for your school. And Penn State, has always done a solid job on recruiting West Virginia kids, and not a great job historically, but a solid job. But yeah, they've been on Jennings longer than pretty much everybody. West Virginia and Penn State were his first two offers. But like you said, he's been at Penn State a ton. We have him as 4 visits. It may be even 5 at this point. I'll have to go back and double check through his Twitter. But yeah, I think there's quite a bit of upside here. But this is a kid that Penn State just got on campus a ton, has always liked quite a bit. I'm not sure his 6'4" uh, is accurate. I'll have to reach out and figure that out. But I think he's a little bit on the smaller side than that. But he's a very intriguing pass rusher, has a lot of upside, in my opinion. It has been a minute since I was able to watch his film, but I think overall he has a chance to, like Yvan Kemajou, develop into a pretty nice uh, pass rusher, whether that's inside, outside in the future. Probably lean more towards the outside for Daniel Jennings, but quite a bit of upside here. He called receiving a Penn State offer a while back an unreal moment in his recruitment. He's developed a really strong relationship with Deion Barnes over the last few months, especially. So this one, I'm not surprised moved quickly. And then he was on campus for the Lash Bash, and he got the job done for Penn State.
Yeah, I'm looking at his tape now. 11 sacks on the year. Plays basketball. Plays running back and edge for football. Some really good testing numbers too.
Yeah.
4.7 40, 4.6 shuttle at the recent Under Armour camp. Also, interestingly enough, he did drop some weight this offseason, sounds like. So he's actually went down from 240 to 220. So I mean,
Yep.
that's a pretty big
And
difference and more
um,
mobile.
our good friend Keenan Cummings over at WE Sports reported in June that his real height is 6'1". So
Yeah.
definitely a smaller side defensive end. Um, but Penn State's had success with those smaller defensive ends in the past, and they hope to do the same here with Daniel Jennings.
Yeah. That is going to be a little bit of an issue with the height thing, but I think they can probably work past it. I mean, he obviously has the skills. Also, we have to not forget that his high school that he plays down there, they're not big. So his high school last year that he was playing at, I believe it was Bluefield, only had like 600 kids in total between the four grades.
Yeah, I've actually spent quite a bit of time um, with my other ventures scouting West Virginia prospects as a whole, and there's probably within the state about let's
One,
see.
two good schools, to be honest.
Oh yeah, there's not many good schools. There's only 4 or 5 really good schools. But in terms of Power Five prospects, if I look at the 2024 class here quickly, I think there's only uh, let's see.
Well, probably, right?
Yeah, by the time we get into the top 10 prospects are about FBS level town, and after that it drops into preferred walk-ons.
So put it like this, I just did the math real quick on our site. There's only been 69 Power Five kids out of West Virginia since 2002.
Yeah,
So
yep,
that
that makes
tells
sense.
that tells you about where they stand in terms of I guess
Yeah,
producing at the next level.
yeah. There's only
Um,
I think 3 or 4 of them last year's class. Robbie Martin, Cannon Lewis, Keyshawn Johnson, and Curtis Jones. I think were the 4 from last year that went now Power Four.
all right, so now Penn State has landed a 2025 commit today, a 2026 commit today. Sounds like they're not done at 2025 yet. So I just want to quickly go through three names that specifically that visited campus this weekend, starting with the big name, Zahir Mathis. He was on campus again for the second time this summer. What are the chances this one happens for Penn State and they flip him from Ohio State?
Um, they're increasing. I will say that they are
Hmm.
certainly increasing. This is one where I think every time Penn State gets him back on campus, you have to feel better and better about Penn State's chances of keeping him, or not keeping him, of landing him in this class, and he would without a doubt be a high-end prospect. Now, I will say, sorry, it would be absolutely a huge get for Penn State. He is a high-end prospect too.
Yeah.
I will say. While he is a borderline 5-star, this is not a kid that I think Penn State fans, if Penn State does land, shouldn't necessarily expect to contribute in year one or even year two. I think his best football is 3, maybe 4 years down the road. He's still kind of a raw prospect. He still needs to put it all together. I think Deion Barnes is certainly a coach who can help him get there. But yeah, I think Penn State has a good chance of landing uh, Zahir Mathis right now. Obviously, it's never easy to flip a prospect away from Ohio State, but Penn State keeps chipping away, and I think they're growing confidence, and I think over here where our confidence in Penn State flipping them continues to grow. I'm still not going to say it's more than a 50% chance. I think it's again maybe closer to that 50-50 chance. But yeah, we'll see what happens. He's supposed to potentially visit Ohio State for an official visit at some point this fall. We'll see if that official visit happens, and we'll see how many more times Penn State can get Mathis back on campus. Uh, it will be interesting. Imhotep plays, I believe, mostly a Saturday schedule. In Philly, they don't really play night Friday games. It's either Friday afternoon or Saturday afternoon. So that's going to affect his availability for visits. But we'll have to wait and see on that. But yeah, I think their chances are definitely increasing on Zahir Mathis.
A couple things there. I'd argue that's a good thing in playing in Penn State's favor that they're going to have Saturday games. That way he cannot get out to Columbus as
That's
easily.
true.
The other thing, Jabri Wallace Coleman, his teammate, is pushing him very hard. We're told we did an article recently, and Jabri talked about specifically pushing him, saying, "Hey, this is home. Like let's
Yeah,
make this a thing." If Deion Barnes flips him, I feel like you got to give Deion like the biggest raise of all time. Man went from having like no commits to everyone thinking it was going to be a struggle of a class, like you mentioned before, to an insane class where a top ranked kid reclassifies. You're gonna flip an Ohio
yeah.
State kid, like you got to give him whatever he wants. Title boost, pay boost, I don't care. Whatever it takes to keep him at in state college for as ever long as you can.
Absolutely.
The other name on the list, or number 2 name on the list, I want to say, is a Florida wide receiver, Koby Howard. Just moved up his commitment date from August 24th previously, which was his first game of the season, to August 4th. This upcoming Sunday? Yes, correct. Talk a little bit about him. Does it sound like Penn State's going to land him?
I'll be honest, I was thinking something else. Which prospect are
You're
we
good.
talking about?
Koby Howard.
Koby Howard, yes,
Yes.
yes. No, yeah, I think Penn State's in a very good spot for Koby Howard coming out of this weekend. The fact that, he was set to announce originally August 28th, and now coming out of this visit, he's moved that up to this upcoming Sunday. I think that's a huge sign of where this one may be going for Koby Howard. Penn State's been in, I think, the lead here for quite a while for Howard. Ever since that official visit, he's really been high on Penn State. It was a matter of Penn State was going to be willing to take him. He went up to campus this week, and did what he had to do, I think, to earn that take status. And we'll see if he ends up committing. But I do think that right now I would make Penn State the betting favorite coming out of this weekend and heading into this Sunday decision.
Last but not least, a Duke commit came to campus in Cameron Smith, St. Joe's prep athlete / linebacker. We know Penn State did lose a linebacker this cycle, and there's probably an opening there if they push for him. The question is, will they push for him?
Yeah, that's going to be the big question. I think Penn State's going to continue to definitely keep in contact with Smith, and I think this will be one to watch going forward through the rest of the cycle. If they do make a strong push to flip him from Duke, I think it's very much a possibility for Penn State to land Cam Smith. I was kind of shocked when earlier this cycle, from what we could tell, Penn State potentially chose to pass on Smith earlier on in the cycle. But, they didn't burn any bridges there. They remained in contact, and if they do push for Cam Smith and do land him, that's big for Penn State. Maybe not because he's not a highly rated prospect. He's a very good prospect, 5.7 rivals rated, top 15 in the state, top 20 athlete in the country. Very good prospect. Not that he's a high 4-star, 5-star, but St. Joe's Prep is a school that Penn State has not been able to get into recently, and if they can land Cam Smith, perhaps that can get the ball rolling in the right direction with Penn State, and perhaps strengthen that relationship between Penn State and St. Joe's, and maybe get a pipeline going again. It's that's one of the best programs, not just in the state but in the country. So if Penn State can get a pipeline going into that, that's definitely going to help them continue to recruit well going forward. And they would like to dominate the state yearly, and St. Joe's Prep often has multiple top 10, 15 prospects in the state every year, so that would definitely help that as well.
Yeah, we've covered recruiting long enough to know that the easiest way to get in with the school is to do them a couple favors and take kids that maybe for most classes you don't take, and sometimes they pan out, sometimes they don't. But with 105 potential scholarships now, I think you can kind of take those risks a little bit. And like you said, St. Joe's Prep is arguably the top team in the state, one of the top in the Northeast, top in the country. There's no question about it. They produce year in and year out. So getting in with them would be huge. Getting in back to the Philadelphia area would be huge.
Yep.
So definitely a kid to keep an eye on between those 3 names. I don't think there's anyone else. They did send out a couple new offers this week. I think the one we're keeping a close eye on would be LeVar Keys out of Maryland. Talk a little bit about him before we sign off.
Yeah, I mean, intriguing wide receiver prospect out of DeMatha the Catholic, so a high school Penn State's familiar with. I believe 4.5 speed. Camped well for Penn State earlier this summer, came back for the Lash Bash. And I know my Penn State sources think that went very well this weekend. We have reached out to Keys hoping to catch up with him. But yeah, that's something I think to keep an eye on as well. Going forward, Penn State has done really well in the 2026 class so far with 4 commitments, including one receiver, Jazir Rogers, who has elite speed, 4.3 speed.
Yeah,
Um,
crazy.
they obviously picked up Kevin Brown as well over the weekend.
Mhm.
But yeah, Keys could potentially be that next to commit if we had to pick anybody in that 2026 cycle. It's funny going into the last pass. I didn't necessarily expect a ton of 2026 commitments, but Penn State is getting a head start certainly on everybody else this upcoming cycle.
Yeah, no, absolutely insane. Speaking of DeMatha, 6 prospects from DeMatha went to Penn State since 2012, so potentially 7 in the
Yeah.
2024 class. 2024, 2026 class. Um, but yeah, that's pretty much it. Doing anything else before we sign off today?
That's all I got today, I think.
All right, so the dead period will extend, I believe, until September 1st, I think it is, something like that. So all of training camp, there will be no prospects on campus, which kind of sucks, but at the same time, I get it. They want the coaches to focus, or the coaches specifically want to focus on their team and on their practices. We'll have more from Penn State football practice shortly. I believe there's an availability coming up today. We'll have photos from that. Our photographer Heather Weichel will be on campus. But other than that, for me and Dylan, that's another episode of the Penn State 365 podcast. Signing off.